I'm Jeff with eBay Addicts, and today my guest is Sarah Stiles. How are you doing today, Sarah?
Oh, I'm great. Just living life over here. Kids are at school. I have a couple hours to myself, so excited to have an adult conversation.
Okay, well, awesome, awesome. So go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience in case they don't know who you are. You live in Colorado, you're a full-time mom, and you're a full-time reseller, right? So
Yeah,
go ahead and talk. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am Sarah from Sarah Styles LLC. I am a full-time mom. That is my full-time gig. I have a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, no, he's 4, a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 15-year-old special needs child. And so that's my full-time gig, especially this past year when they were at home remote learning. And then I do resell this full-time part-time. I work about 15 to 20 hours. So I work
Right.
roughly part-time hours, but I am bringing in, my last month was a 10K month. So I guess it's a full-time income, and it is my only job on top of my children. So whatever kind of reseller you would like to classify me as, that's where I'm coming to the table from.
Well, the reason why I haven't talked to Sarah in probably since January, since I had you on last, it was right after New Year's. But
Mhm.
I like talking to Sarah because she has this positive like vibe, this positive energy. You just hang out with her and talk to her, and she just has this like positive energy. And I'm just like, it can be thunderstorming everywhere else, and Sarah's like, no, it's rainbows and butterflies here. Like you just have this like positive energy about you. So Sarah, tell people, so you live in Colorado, you live in Denver, outside of Denver, is that correct?
Yeah, a suburb of Denver.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly where it's at. And you mainly sell clothing. You sell like women's clothing, purses, shoes, things like that. So I sell media, so we sell different type of merchandise. But a lot of times, guys, if you'll see me on Sarah Styles, I'll stop by and leave comments. I stop by and drop thumbs up. I'll stop by on the live streams just because it's like you are the sum of the people who you hang out with. I don't know if that makes sense to you or
Yep.
not. So I try to hang out with like-minded people and people that have positive people. You ever been around somebody that has a bad day and they want you to have a bad day and
Yeah.
they want
Oh,
to
yeah.
like
I
tell
totally
you all
agree with
about
that.
it?
Yeah.
Right, right. And so
Well, and my
Sarah's like the
channel,
complete opposite. Go ahead.
I appreciate you saying that because I always do like to try and look at the positive. Like even if something bad happens, you learn from it. Although I
Yeah.
feel like the last video that I recorded is kind of doom and gloom. So tell me how you feel after you watch that one, about how much you take home gross and then how much it actually makes it to your bank
I,
account can kind of be
I
startling sometimes.
I actually watched your video and you're doing fine. I mean, there's you're doing fine with like your main priority being a full time mom, and then reselling is like your side gig. So if you guys don't know Sarah, she does somewhere between 15 to 20 hours a week reselling, but then you usually net like $2,000 or in sales a week. So essentially, your side hustle makes you about $2,000 a week, and we're talking like at least gross sales. And last month,
Yeah.
tell everybody in our audience how much you did last month for the months of March and April. Just give them like a rough ballpark figure because I don't want to
I'm
spoil it. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, it's fine. I'm hitting basically 10K a month, and we're talking gross numbers. But then I do a monthly video of here's my gross number because it's very impressive. Which yay! But then I go through and I show you my P&L and tell you how much money actually makes it to my bank account after you pay COGS and shipping and fees and expenses and save money for taxes, which kills us as small business owners. But you do have to do that as well. And so I do a monthly video talking because most resellers say gross numbers, which is fine. They're real numbers. But there's a lot of people who want to see the back end of it too, right? Like here's how much money goes into your bank account at the end of it.
Uh-huh.
So I do, yeah, monthly video. It's coming out. I'm doing one for, what month is it? May. So April. I closed out
Uh-huh.
April, and my one for April will come out on Friday.
Yeah. So see, this is why me and Sarah get along because I'm like a reselling eBay nerd, and she like breaks down all the numbers and shows you. Here's my gross numbers. Here's my COG, my cost of goods. Here's my other expenses that I have. She even breaks it down and says, here's what I'm paying for electric, cable, internet. All this stuff is like broken down in numbers, and you have a VA. So that's kind of like your secret, your like secret weapon X that kind of like people don't realize is you kind of like outsource part of your business, and you
Mhm.
have like an eBay lister that helps you list items. So first, before we do that, I want to say hello to the people in the chat. So give me 1 second, okay?
Oh, of
I
course.
wanted to say hey to Keith is in the chat. He says hello everybody. We have Travis R says good
Hello,
morning. Good morning
Travis.
you all. We have Casey is here. Carolina Thrifter. He says, "What's up, Jeff and Sarah? And we have eBliss Reseller Solutions says, hey, Jeff and Sarah, having my morning coffee and watching you two, starting my day off right. Well, thank you guys for in the chat for hanging out with us. We appreciate you. Yeah. If you have questions for our guests, be sure to drop it in the chat because she's a full-time mom, so I don't have her that long today. I'm trying to be respectful of her time. So if you have questions for our guests, drop it in the chat. So my first kind of topic that I want to get into with is talk to me a little bit about how you have this like eBay lister, like you kind of outsource some of your listing because, you know, I talk about on my channel a lot is you only have 24 hours in a day. So you only have 24 hours in a day to allocate everything you need to get done. So talk to me about how you went about doing this and getting an eBay lister, what it is that you look for, kind of like talk to me a little bit about how that works.
Yeah. So I do have an eBay lister, and this is kind of different for everyone. My definition, what my lister does, I take all of the photos, I send it to them on a zip file via email, and then they create drafts in eBay for me from the photos, and they do everything. They do the title, the description, all the drop downs, they price based off of Peak data. And then I go through and review it quickly just to make sure, like, you know, this picture says a large, and it is actually anything that's going to get me a item not as described, I'm looking at, because I don't want, you know, it's on eBay. You don't want that on your file. So I go through and quickly review, but then I launch it and then I do the shipping and everything. So they essentially are creating the drafts because it is time consuming. And as a mom, it's not something that I can do with my children because I was making mistakes. You know, I'm trying to type something up and a kid comes in and then I forget what I'm doing. So I did outsource that part, and it's something that I can pay someone to do that allows me to do other parts of my business. There's no way that I could do social media and my digital products if I was having to spend 15 or 20 hours a week listing items, because I do 10 to 12 a day. Which that's all I would do. I would take photos and list. In my 12 to 15 hours a week that I spend on reselling, I wouldn't be able to do anything else.
Okay, now does your eBay lister that you kind of like subcontract, or are they here in the United States or are they overseas? Kind of explain to me how that works. We have a question from Casey. He says, how much does it cost to have someone do that?
And I will definitely answer all the questions. I actually did a live on my channel on Monday with Denali from El Ducho Thrifts. And we talked about this as well. So if you are watching this and you didn't get a chance to have a question, you can head over to my channel and watch that after. But I started with a lister here in the US, and it kind of just we were just talking, became friends on Instagram, and she mentioned that she lists, and she's been listing on eBay for like 12 years. So she essentially taught me how to list on eBay because I wasn't really on eBay. And so I paid her per listing, which I think it ended up being $2.50 a listing because she did eBay and then she cross-posted to Poshmark as well for me. And then she has a full-time job, and her full-time job became busier and busier. So after a year, she was like, I can't do this anymore. And so since then I actually have 2 VAs now, because if something happens, I don't want to be in that position again, when she was like, I have to go work more on my full-time job. I will work for you 2 more weeks and then I can't do this anymore. And I was like, panicked, because I was like, I need someone. So I have 2 VAs now, just in case something happens or someone gets sick, to list the same amount for me. And I found them on Upwork, and they are actually both in the Philippines. And so Upwork tends to work, at least the way that I've done the Upwork, it's by the hour. And it kind of just depends on what level that you want in the contractor. Some of them, cost more because they've been doing this for longer and it's their living wage. They set the price. So it kind of just depends on what country you want and what kind of level that you want, but it is by the hour. And it tends to be, I'm noticing it's in the Philippines, it's slightly less than I was paying the VA in the US, but not by much, because it's an hourly rate and they can only do so many an hour. And my other VA in the US was really fast. So it ends up being, it's not much cheaper going to another country to do it, from my experience.
Yeah, if you guys, I don't know if I have that video link below, but if you go on Sarah's channel, she has the whole link talking about her gross sales, and then shows expenses of what she has to pay her employees, cost of goods. She goes into all those numbers if you want to learn more. I wanted to say hey to Sal's HQ says, hey, eBay addicts and Sarah, chat salute. I wanted to say hey to Kelly Reseller Louise is in the chat. I wanted to say hey to eBliss Reseller Solutions. He says, what is the most difficult thing is delegate and outsourcing Monday tasks. Definitely have to watch their YouTube channel with Danelle. Yeah, I have her channel is linked down below. So when you're kind of outsourcing a little bit of this, I kind of have two-part questions. So kind of a little bit how that works. You take photos and then you type up a description or anything after that, or you just take like front and back photo and you just say, okay, like for example, let's say if I wanted to get this item listed, would you just take front back photos and then just upload it and send it to your lister, or how exactly would that work?
Yeah, I don't do media. I would guess that you can probably look it up by the UPC on the back. So I would make sure to definitely take a close picture of that because they can type that number in. But I'll say for clothes because that's what I do the majority of. I take, a front picture, a picture of the tag, a picture of for clothes you want all of the inside labels, like what it's made of, and all of that stuff. If there's like any pocket, any unique features that I want to be in the listing, I'll take a picture of. If there's any flaws in the item as well, I take a picture and point to it so that they know that it's a flaw. And then I have an iPhone and a Mac. And so all of the photos that I take on my iPhone are automatically on my Mac, which is glorious. So then I just export those to a file and I zip that file and I send them an email. And they get a picture of, I will say, let me take that back. I take the photos, I take a picture of the weight so that they know how to do the shipping for me. And then I take a picture of the SKU number on it as well, so that they know what SKU number to put in the listing. And then from all of those photos, they can look up the item and they fill out a title, they fill out a description, they know how to find the keywords. eBay is amazing because you have Terapeak, so they can look in Terapeak, and I tell them typically to do, I think 20% above the 20% above the average sale price, typically is what I do for them to price it. And then my shipping is all pretty easy because I do mainly the same things. So if it's under a pound, and I'm in the middle of the country, so anything first class costs me roughly $5 to ship. So anything that's under a pound, they list it as $4.99. Anything that's under 2 pounds, they list it as $9.99. If it does fit in a flat rate, if it's over 1 pound and it fits in a flat rate envelope, then they list it as $7.99, and I take a photo of that envelope. And then every once in a while, I have something that is 3 pounds, likely like a pair of boots or a pair of shoes. And then I just take that and they know to list it as like $13.99, I think is what it costs for me to ship.
Okay.
Did that answer the question? I feel like I was rambling. Okay.
We're good. We're good. So I wanted to ask you a question. I was watching one of your recent videos and you were talking about one of your strategies you do. It's called banking, where you'll have kind of like items listed kind of in draft. Because I can tell that you'll kind of do that both on your social media for YouTube and kind of like, you'll have like, I do the same thing where I used to when I did pre-recorded videos. I would kind of have videos like pre-recorded. And then I would like kind of have them uploaded into the system, and I would just have them listed as private, and then I would flip them over to public. So you have something similar to that with eBay, where you'll have items saved in draft in your bank, and then you'll just kind of like release so many of them a day to like keep your store active. Can you talk a little bit about your banking strategy that you do on eBay?
Yeah, I just did a video on this and I didn't realize that it was like this great idea. It's just what I've done. And everyone's like, oh, this is such a good idea. I'm going to do this. I absolutely do it with social media. You guys will watch my channel and be like, why is she showing me a what sold video from 3 weeks ago? Part of it is because I film it and then I don't always get to edit it for a week, and then you do a thumbnail. But some of it too is I do schedule a couple of weeks out to make sure, hey, my kid's sick this week and I don't have a chance to film a video, to make sure that I'm constantly having YouTube videos. It works the same on eBay. You have to constantly be active in your store, and they want to see. I have listed 10 items a day for a year as a full-time mom, remote teaching 3 children. And it's because of this idea. So what I do is I take photos. I'm always taking photos. I have probably, I spend about 3 to 4 hours a week taking photos, regardless of how many photos I can do in that time, and send them to the lister, and I have them banked. So I have 300 items of photos that are ready for my lister to list when they're ready for them. So that's essentially, I don't know, a couple weeks ahead from that. And then my listers have there probably, I think on like 2 weeks, I have about 2 weeks worth of drafts in my eBay, so that I can go in I'm not constantly doing this. I need to do 10 today. I need to do 10 a day. I just constantly, I'm so far ahead that I constantly am having items in there. So I call it my bank. Essentially, I am always making sure, like I started out doing this with 5 items. I made sure that I was listing 5 items a day. Any items that I took more, like if I had photos for 6 items that day, that one extra went into my bank. And then the next day when I had time to take photos for 10 items, I would list 5 of them and then I would put the other 5 into my bank. So tomorrow when something comes up, I have those items in my bank that I can constantly be listing every single day. Did that explain it well enough? I feel like
yeah. Well, if they want more information, I have your channel link down below. They can go by and check you out and check out your channel. But yeah, you see why I brought Sarah on. She's really smart. She's really intelligent. She has this like burst of energy. And she knows she's been doing this for a while. And you also used to sell on Poshmark as well. So if you guys have questions about eBay or Poshmark, you could drop it in the chat. This is one of the most I guess poignant questions I have for you today. I want you to talk a little bit about, because I get questions from, because I'm a guy. I'm not a girl, so I can't like relate to the audience the way you can. So how can you explain to somebody? Talk to me about how you go about balancing your day, being a mom and raising 3 kids, plus shooting your YouTube videos and making time to work on your reselling business as well, and still make $2,000 a week in sales. So kind of walk me through this process, because like I kind of like make up my own work schedule. Like I work whenever I want to work and I'm off when I want to be off. Like I can sleep in as late as I want to sleep in and work as late as I want to work. Where your whole day is like structured. You're like, I got to get up at this time. I've got to feed the kids breakfast. I got to get them off to school. And then on top of that, you had to deal with this whole lockdown and kind of like being a stay-at-home mom / teacher, like overseeing the schoolwork. So talk to me about how that went for you, and how do you like structure your day and your time and all that?
The pandemic was definitely awful. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I think we all agree with that, right? It was, but having the kids, so this time last year, they came home and I was now their teacher, and I went from, having my preschool, my youngest was 3 last year, so he was home with me full time. So I always had a child at home, but come fall, he would have gone to preschool and I would have had time to myself. That didn't happen. So I was their teacher until they are back in school now, about a month ago. And so my time now, it's glorious. I have 2.5 hours on Monday through Thursday to do whatever I want to do. And that's the only kid-free time that I have, unless I do something on the evenings or on the weekends, but then it takes away from family time, right? Because my husband works essentially 7 to 4. I was gonna say 9 to 5, but it's really like 7 to 4. And so I hunker down, and those 2.5 hours, I wake up, I drop my kids off, get them ready, drop my kids off. Sometimes if they're pretty independent children, and so like this morning they were making themselves breakfast and getting ready, and I was kind of overseeing it while I was listing on eBay. And this is where the drafts and the banking comes in. It took me 10 minutes maybe to launch 10 listings on eBay this morning while my kids were doing that, because the listers had them ready for me and I already had drafts ready, right? So I listed this morning. I usually wake up first thing in the morning before I even get out of bed and check my social media, how it is. You have to check your DMs, and if people comment, you just want to comment back. Try and do that in a timely fashion. So I usually do that first thing before I am even out of bed, just to make sure that it gets done for the day. Drop my kids off, and then it's about 8:15 when I get home, and I usually either batch film videos. So like this week, Monday, I filmed 3 videos in 2 hours, and then I will spend other times editing them. Because I find when you have things, like I set up my YouTube space, and so filming back to back allows me to be more efficient with my time. So I'll usually work on YouTube, social media, probably 2 of those 4 days. And then the other 2 days I'm taking photos. So I can do a photo. Each item takes me about 1.5 minutes. So in about 3 to 4 hours, I can take 100, what is that? 100 and some items of photos. And I take photos, I take the weight, I take the SKU, and I put them all away. So that That's essentially what I do with my kid free time. I pick up my kid, we have lunch together. He likes to help me ship. So I usually ship in the afternoon with him. I do post office pickup because my carrier is absolutely amazing. And even if I forget to ask for it, you have to get online and schedule it. Even if I forget to do that, he always knows that I always have packages, and he gets them, which is, if you are busy and you have a great carrier, I highly recommend doing that because it saves that post office trip, especially if you have children. Waiting in line at the post office is not something that is fun and you want to spend your time doing. And then we spend the afternoon together doing, playing, going for walks, typically laundry. And then I pick up my middle child is a kindergartner, so she gets picked up in the middle of the day. We go get her, and then we come home, and 3 of the 5 days we have either taekwondo or swim lessons that we do. Mondays I do a live, so come 4 o'clock I do a YouTube live. My husband's off and he hangs with the kids while I do a YouTube live, and then we have dinner and go to bed. Saturday mornings, most Saturday mornings as well, I spend 3 to 4 hours working. Typically, this is either outsourcing at a thrift store or catching up on YouTube, editing YouTube videos, or taking photos, whatever else needs to get done for the week.
Yeah, and it's funny, you still found time to be on YouTube because, believe it or not, I run into Sarah all the time on YouTube. Like, well, we're not like I say at least every two or 3 weeks I'll run into her online. I'll say, "Hey, how you doing, Sarah?" And she'll just be like, "I'm busy," So kind of like, what would be your like top piece of advice for somebody if they're in a similar situation that you are? Maybe they have 2 or 3 kids. They're trying to figure this whole thing out. Like, hey, because you're doing that and shooting YouTube videos. So if they don't even have a YouTube channel and they're just like, hey, I've got 2 or 3 kids, I'm trying to get them up, make sure they're doing their homework, make sure they take a bath, make sure that they, eat their dinner, eat their vegetables and all that stuff. Like, what would be your advice for them to say, hey, how do you go about balancing your like work life to like, hey, I need to buckle down. My goal is to make, let's say, $1,000, net, or $2,000 this week in sales. Like, how can they go ahead and focus and make sure their business is successful, but also make sure everything is great at their home with their family as well? Like, what would be some advice that you would have for them?
I think, so it's kind of a 2-part thing that I would say. One is to really figure out how to be efficient with your time. And you may think that you're efficient, but until you maybe video yourself doing it, or I like to time myself doing things and then try and beat it. Like, oh, it took me 2 minutes to ship an item. Let me change this little tweak and see if it can take me a little bit more time. And I hear people all the time say, oh, it doesn't take me very long. Like, oh, it only takes me 30 seconds. Well, 30 seconds times 300 items that I'm shipping a month, that's hours, right? It adds up very quickly. And like with my photos over the past year, I spent a lot of time really honing down and getting that process in place. So now I can take 100 photos, 100 items, photos in 2 or 3 hours. And it's going to be different for everybody. I share some of the tips that I personally do. I know that that's not going to be able for everybody. I have my own space, but trying to find ways to be the most efficient with your time. And if something doesn't take very long, really like add that up. 30 seconds times doing this, 100 times really does add up quickly. And then the thing that helped me grow, honestly, and allows me to be efficient with my time and allows me to make this money is knowing my numbers and knowing what the analytics say. I don't waste my time. I don't buy items that are not going to sell. I look at Terapeak data because Terapeak tells you, like, eBay is telling you what to buy. I am looking at my impressions on eBay. I am running a sale, and then I'm looking at the analytics on eBay to say, did the sale actually work for me? I'm listing new items, and I'm just constantly, I spend a chunk of my time looking at my numbers to understand what I'm doing. Is it actually worth it? And quit selling things that people don't want, right? And quit doing strategies that aren't working. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was on like 7 platforms. Well, it takes time to list on 7 platforms, and I was only bringing in a couple $100 from these platforms. And it works for some people, right? So my strategy isn't going to work for everybody, but really just being cognizant of your numbers and cognizant of your time and having grace with yourself. That's my third part. I added a third part, but having grace with yourself, because don't compare yourself to me. My situation is completely different. My kids are slightly older. I was not to this level when I had little tiny babies that don't leave you alone. My 3-year-old can play a little bit better than, if you have an 18-month-old who's running around the house, or a teeny tiny baby. And everyone's situation is unique and different. So work on your situation and get tips from other people. Definitely don't compare to yourself, other people.
Okay, cool. We got a bunch of people in the chat. I want to say hey to a few people. We got Katie Reed is in the chat. Hey, Katie Reed, thanks for coming by and hanging out with us. We have the Frugal Peanut Reseller says, hey, everybody. Thank you for coming by and hanging out. My buddy BK from the Rockies says like, share, subscribe, and comment. LKL Graphics, he says, Sarah, I subscribe to your channel, and I will check out your videos later. We have the Cap Guy is here. He says, smash the thumbs up button. And we had Casey was here. He says, I need to find me one, a lister is what he was talking about. Says the Flippin' Sports Guy says, whoa, early one today. Morning, Jeff and Sarah. And we have Antiques from Karen. Janet says, hey, everybody. Yeah, I'm not usually a morning person, but sometimes I'm trying to make the schedule work. So I reached out to Sarah and I was like, hey, when can we meet up? And she was like, this is the only time I have. Take it or leave it. I was like, all right, we're going to do it. We're going to make it work.
I hope I said it nicer than that.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's like, these are the time zones that we have. So it's like this, we just got to work with what we got. So Sarah, I kind of want to hit the rewind button for a minute, because in case people in our audience don't know like enough about you or who you are or what your background was, talk a little bit about for a few minutes, like, what is it that you were doing? What was that you were up to before you kind of transitioned to becoming a full-time reseller? Because you used to work with a lot of statistics, data, analytics. Talk a little bit about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you watch my channel, it is very apparent that that's my background. I do have a degree in mathematics, and I was working in corporate America. I was doing statistical modeling and forecasting for a utility company. So I was looking at the usage, how people use their energy, and forecasting to the future to help the company make decisions based off of how people use their stuff. So using, building statistically sound models, and I won't get into all of it, but I was working with numbers and data, and I do have a degree in mathematics. I've always done upcycle though, since I was in high school, and I've thrifted my entire life. So this has always kind of been intertwined in my life. This is the first time in my life, because I have a spouse who brings in a steady full-time income and has health benefits. This is the first time that this is the first time it's been my only gig on top of, being a mom that you don't get paid for. So.
Yeah. And so, your husband, I'm trying to remember, did he work in the same place you worked at? Is that where you guys end up meeting up at, or no?
No, he does. He has a degree in finance, and he works with numbers and builds Excel spreadsheets and stuff as well. So we kind of have a similar background, but he worked at a different company. We met
well, that's good.
Randomly.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's good. Well, I'm just saying it's good that he's able to work and has a job and has health insurance and has a paycheck coming in, because as you know, sometimes sales can go up or down when you're a reseller, and you might have a great month one month and the next month may be down. So now, so you worked in analytic, and you did a lot of charts and spreadsheets and graphs, and it kind of like transitioned over to you being a reseller. So. So Sarah, I thought you were going to talk. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was just agreeing with you. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, this is what happens when we're live, guys. So Sarah, so now that you've transitioned, and so when you got to the point where you were like, was it one of those things where you're like, hey, it's going to save us a lot of money for me to be home with the kids as opposed to like paying a babysitter? Like, what kind of like was the transition from you deciding to like leave your full-time job to be a reseller? That's kind of what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So when I had my daughter, so my oldest is 15. He's my stepson. So when me and my husband got married, he was 6. So it didn't make sense to stay home with a 6-year-old who was in school full time. And, we only had him every other week. And then I had my daughter 6 years ago. And I had some health issues around having her. So I kind of decided to stay at home to take care of her and be with her, but then also to kind of just figure out some of these health issues from having a child. It was just really hard. I was going to doctor's appointments. It was hard for me to work. And so I decided to stay home, and I was like, I'm just going to do it for like 6 months, right? Like get this all figured out. She'll be 1 and, you know, she'll go into daycare. And I'm still home. So I never went back, obviously. At that time, I wasn't reselling. Once you got to be about 18 months, if you are a parent, you know, it's very difficult to be at home and not have anything that's kind of yours. So I started doing upcycling again, just because I enjoyed it, which is, you know, I was buying things at the thrift store and sewing them into different things and selling them on Etsy. Very, very, very part-time. You know, I was selling like 2 things a month or something. And then I had my second birth, but my third child 4 years ago, continued with the upcycling, but having little kids and sewing, having needles, having sharp edges is not really very safe. And so I kind of stopped with the upcycling and moved strictly into reselling. And then as they've gotten older and I've had more time that I can dedicate to it, it's kind of just evolved into this side hustle thing or full-time thing, right? And it's actually, we'll see how it goes. Life continues to change, but it is a nice job to have because I can be flexible. If someone gets sick, I, you know, don't have to call in and ask someone to take the day off. My kids are off for the summer. I don't have to send them to daycare or child camps and try and figure that out. I can just be with them. And, you know, picking them up and dropping them off. My 6-year-old, when it was just him, was going to childcare at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we picked him up at 6 o'clock at night. And so it's nice that I can take him at 8 o'clock and pick him up at 3 and not have to be in before and after care.
Okay. So Sarah, I kind of wanted to talk about what are some of your projects. You have a podcast, is that correct? You have your YouTube channel, you have your reselling business. What are some of your projects that we're going to see from Sarah Stiles between now and Christmas? And like, what is some more of your long-term goals that you're looking at, maybe 3, 4, 5 years down the line that you're looking at? I mean, are you going to maybe hire more employees? Are you going to try to scale your business? What are some of the things that you've been kind of thinking about? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So I do have a podcast. I have not uploaded anything new in like 6 months. So what I was doing is my live YouTube videos. I was just exporting the audio and then putting it on my podcast. I have since stopped doing that just because it's time consuming. Maybe eventually I'll go back. It just takes time, and it wasn't something that was bringing me revenue yet. So I had to cut something. So there is like, I don't know, 25 podcasts out there, but then everything else is on YouTube. In the future, so my kids are off this summer. I'm probably going to be very, very maintenance mode because I want to spend the time with them. And we're not in a pandemic, so we can actually go. We are still in a pandemic. We're not quarantined anymore as much, so we can go out and do things. So this summer will definitely be very chill, no growth, probably less YouTube videos. Sorry, guys. But trying to just maintain what I have. Come the fall, if everything goes according to plan and the kids are still in school, my preschooler will still only be half day, so I'll still have about the same amount of time, but it's dedicated kid-free time. And I would like to try and transition into some kind of like mentorship, or maybe more classes or digital products. Or I don't really want to grow my store much because I work from home and I'm out of space. And because I have to work from home because I have the kids here, having a storage unit that I have to go to is not in the picture until my preschooler is in school all day, which won't be for 2 years. So it'll probably be for this year, much of the same, possibly adding in. I did a beta test for like a mentor group. We met once a week on Zoom to kind of just talk and, you know, look at our numbers and understand what they meant. And I really enjoyed it. And so I'm hoping that I can do that again in the fall once I have dedicated kid-free time.
Yeah.
Some core people constantly ask me for like courses. I have 2 courses and 3 digital products, and I do enjoy those. But it's kid-free time. It's very labor-intensive kid-free time that I have to have, and I just don't have a lot of that right now. 3 to 5 years, I have no idea. Honestly, I mean, if you would have asked me, you know, 10 years ago, I would have been in corporate America, right? And now here I am. So I follow my numbers, and whatever you guys can see in my monthly videos, like I have split outs of where is bringing money and so I'm going to follow that for this business. But it may come to a point where it does make more sense for me to go back to corporate America or I don't know, something else comes up with kids and a family. So I don't
Yeah.
really.
That's cool. Yeah, if someone's asked me what I was going to be doing in 5 years from now, I would be like, I would be like, I have things mapped out what I'm doing between now and the end of the year, and that's it. That's all I
Yeah.
got so far. So
Yeah.
we'll kind of figure it out as we go. So I have a quick question for you. Do you have a backyard at your house on your property or no? Because I
Yes.
was going to say you might. I mean, it's just me thinking out loud, but you might consider maybe hitting like an outbuilding, like a little shed or something. Because if you had an outbuilding, you could store more merchandise. Then in theory you'd have more items listed and you could potentially make more sales. I'm just throwing it out there. I have a shed. Drew Profit Monsters, he just went and bought a shed recently. I think the Nurse Flipper has like 2 different sheds on her property. So I'm not talking about something like huge and extravagant, but just like if this is hypothetically, if it's something that you wanted to look into, because I don't even know what a shed costs. I just happened to where I moved in, they had a shed in the backyard when I moved here, so I've been using it. But I was just thinking, if you had something like that, where you that way you had more space to store your merchandise without having to like go to a storage unit every day, that might be a win-win. But I don't know how much it would cost, and I don't know what I can't run the numbers to tell you what the rate of return would be. So yeah, right.
Imagine that I've actually looked at those numbers. So I mean, it is because we've looked at getting a shed, and our backyard, we moved last year. Our backyard is bigger, but it's still. One is the kid. Like we have a backyard for the children. If I put a big shed, we already have one shed for like just our lawnmower and stuff.
Lawnmower and stuff.
Yeah, we have a really big garden, and we are building a fire pit. So then there's not a lot of space for the kids to play as it is right now. So that's one of the things. The other thing is, if you buy more items, you have to pay to buy more items. Where digital products, YouTube, there's no overhead to that, right? And so eventually, hopefully, that income is going to grow to where it makes more sense for me to do that. And the eBay, the reselling is just this constant grind that you're always having to list, you're always having to ship. Making more sales also means that I'm having to ship more, which yay, you're making more sales, but then that's also more time consuming as well. And I don't have, like right now I can ship in under 2 minutes an item. And so it takes me 20 minutes a day to ship, right? I'm doing 10 items a day. It's not a big deal. But if I go to a higher volume, now that shipping time is coming out of other things that I'm doing. And so I'm kind of, we'll see. I mean, talk to me in a year or 6 months. This may change. But right now, my focus is kind of maintaining where I'm at with the eBay business and then trying to make money on things that don't have an overhead that I can. And I mean, you don't make a ton of money on YouTube. So I am nowhere near the point of making the money on YouTube that I make reselling, but I'm hoping that eventually, if I keep putting that grind into YouTube or digital products or other types of things that don't have an overhead to it, that maybe it can kind of start to supplement instead of this constantly always having to buy more items. Because when you're doing more volume as well, you have to source more, which I don't have a lot of time to go out and be sourcing more, right?
Totally. Yeah, I understand. What you're saying is that if you have an ebook, you have a course, if you have something like that, it just auto replenishes itself. You're not having to go back and list, 500 items in your eBay store because you're saying, hey, I wrote this ebook. I wrote it once. It's $19.99 or whatever it is. If you want to buy it, you can buy it. You could just resell that same book over and over again without having to do promoted listings, without having to do measurements, without having to do shipping. Without having to do all that. I understand that. I was just trying to think outside the box because, like, I want to get to 10,000 items by the end of the year, and then next year maybe 15 or 20,000. So it's like my mind is I want to be able to scale it and grow the business where you're at. Like you only have so much space. That's why I have items like this that don't take up a lot of space, and I can stack them to the ceiling if I need to, or put them in totes, and I can have more items listed in more of a condensed space. So, hey, let me say hello to a few people in the chat. Small Town Picker is here. Antiques of Karen says, wow, I'm exhausted just listening to her daily schedule. I told you, she's got energy. She's just got this like little energy about her. We got the Frugal Peanut Reseller is in the chat. Aces is in the chat. He says, where can I find one of these eBay listers? We just had a whole segment talking about it. If you want to check out her channel is linked down below. But if you want to answer that question real quick for our viewer.
Yeah. So like he said, my channel is listed down below. I did a whole YouTube live on this on Monday. So we go really into detail in this. There's various different places. You can find them on Instagram and social media. The most places that people are going to talk about or find them on is going to be Upwork or Fiverr. And it's really easy. I use Upwork. I haven't used Fiverr, so I can't speak to that. But Upwork, you post a listing and people bid on it, and you can talk to them before you. But within a day, I had someone on my eBay account making listings. So it is very easy and it's very vetted. So they take care of, you're not giving them your information. Upwork pays them weekly for you. They take screenshots as the people are working, so you can see that they are actually doing what they say they are doing. They track their time for you. So it is really very easy. And the people, one of my listers has been doing this for 6 years. So she knows. You have to kind of teach them, like, this is how I like my listings to go. But you can definitely find, I just type in eBay listers or eBay and you get people that come up.
All right, so Sarah, before we let you go, I gotta talk to you about this real quick. What is, explain what your business model is as far as sourcing, as far as, like, when we talked last, it was way back in January. It was like the 1st of January or something. So talk to me a little bit about, we talked last time, you said you would buy stuff in bulk and you would get clothing that was like new with tags. And then you would turn around and, you would buy them wholesale prices, and then you turn around and sell them like retail prices. And then you would kind of do the margin in between. So since things have opened up a little bit from the lockdown, have you been able to go out and do like more sourcing at thrift stores now? Or kind of talk to me a little bit about how your business model works, because I kind of want to get to the nuts and bolts of it. The title of the video is How Sarah Makes $2,000 a Week Reselling. So I don't want it to be like clickbait. So I want to talk a little bit about how you're able to do that like part-time with your reselling business and still able to balance that with being a full-time mom as well. So talk to us a little bit about the reselling game. Like, what's your average ASP, COG, which would be your cost of goods. Talk to us about your business model.
Yeah. So my average cost of goods is roughly around $31 last month, I think it was. It's absolutely declined over the pandemic. And there's 2 reasons for this. One is it's a pandemic and people don't have money. So things that we're selling, this time, well, not this time, like, I don't know, 14 months ago, pre-pandemic, things that we're selling then are definitely selling lower now. People are sending lower offers. They just don't have the money. So that's one reason. The second reason is I have moved into doing more liquidation. So that's typically buying from big stores that I typically buy either returns or I can't think of the word, but it's not it's their fall stock that didn't sell and they don't have it in the store anymore. So they sell it off. So I typically buy that. Things have opened up now. And so I am out thrifting more. My thrifting items average sale price is, I don't have my numbers in front of me. It's higher. I've done videos on comparing liquidation to thrifting. I can cherry pick. I live in Denver and we have pretty good thrifting here, I've been told. I've never thrifted anywhere else, but I can cherry pick items that are going to sell really high for me. And so thrifting is definitely a higher ASP. Liquidation brings in the volume and it brings it to me, right? It gets shipped directly to my house and I can go online and source while my kid is having a nap, right? Where I can't go out and thrift. I only thrift like twice a month. And so I just can't, I list 10 items a day. I cannot get the volume in strictly thrifting, but my thrifting average sale price is higher. Cost of goods on a liquidation pallet is going to be higher, typically because you're getting new tag items. My average cost of goods right now, I think, is around $8. So that's between thrifted items and liquidation, but liquidation is I think last time I looked, I had like 60 to 70% of my listed items were liquidation. So that's driving my cost of goods. My thrifted cost of goods is typically like $5 or $6. I don't do the bins. So that's why I have a higher cost of goods.
Okay.
Did that answer it all? Did I get it all? Or do we have questions?
Yeah, a little bit. So now if I called you up on the phone or I hit you up DM on Instagram and I said, hey, Sarah, help me. I'm not making I want to make $1,000 a week net. That's what I want to clear after expenses. I'm a busy person. I have 2-3 kids. I only have, let's say, 20 hours a week to commit to my reselling business. What do I need to do? Like, what would be your top, like maybe 1, 2, 3, like what would be your top 3 tips? What would be your top 2 or 3 steps? Because you actually have a video on your channel. It's like, here's how to make money reselling step by step. but we don't have that much time. So kind of give us a brief synopsis. If I called you up and I was like, hey, Sarah, I'm really having a hard time with my reselling business. I really want to be able to jumpstart it. What are 3 things that I could do right now to jumpstart my business?
I think the biggest thing that I'm going to say is to know your numbers. I mean, you asked me what my average sale price was, my cost of goods, and like I can tell you those, and I can tell you what they mean. And if you know that, like I could tell you liquidation isn't have as good of cost of good or as good of average sale price as the thrift store. If you don't understand these numbers and what they mean, you're just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that it sticks, and you're wasting your time if you're continuing to buy things that aren't selling or aren't selling high. So my first thing would be is to understand your numbers, and I don't care how you do it, but really understand so that you can spend your time wisely. When I thrift, I only go to 3 places at the thrift store because I know those are my big hitters. And then I can go to 4 thrift stores in the 4 hours that I have, and I'm not spending time looking at items that aren't going to provide that return for me. I can't tell you go and buy these bags because this is what works for me, because your sourcing is different. You sell something completely different, right? Everyone has
like a niche.
Yeah, right. And so I think niching down definitely helps, because niching down also can help. And not everyone has to niche down, but if you don't have a lot of time, niching down helps because you're the expert in this. But then also when you're listing, it's significantly easier to list and to research things when, you can do a sell similar on a pair of jeans and you only have to change 4 things because it's a pair of jeans, right? But if you're doing all these one-offs, I think it makes it a lot harder. And
right.
Look at your processes. Honestly, I grew my business so much last year because I worked with Chris from A Daily Refinement. We did a mentorship, and if you guys watch his channel, he is all about processes and like just being on top of it. And it really helped me because you don't, like you said earlier, there's only 24 hours. You're not going to get more time. That's not, and especially as a mom, or if you have a full-time job or you're busy, you're not going to get more time. You need to find ways to spend your time wisely. So knowing what is working for you when you're out thrifting, instead of just wandering around aimlessly in the store, have a game plan, know what you're looking for, know what your average sale price is, and your sell-through rates. I mean, having a high average sale price, if it doesn't sell, doesn't mean anything, right? If you buy this item, but it's not going to sell for 3 years, some business models work that way. But if you're trying to get this recurring, if you're going to have that business model, you need to have a lot of space. Right.
Yeah.
If you are wanting to turn over items, then you want to have items that have a high sell-through rate. You want things that are going to be constantly turning over. So understanding your numbers so that you can build a business plan. And then like the pandemic happened, and I changed my business model because I was noticing my average sale price was going down. I used to be a high average sale price seller. My average sale price was like $40 pre-pandemic. I didn't have to list as many items because they were selling higher. The pandemic hit and people don't have as much money. I had to move to more volume to continue to make that money. But if I didn't look at my numbers, I wouldn't have known that, at least not right away. Like I caught it like within the first month. I was like, whoa, people are not spending as much money.
Right. All right. So awesome, Sarah. So we've had you on the show for about 50 minutes. So tell everybody where they can find you at on YouTube and Instagram so they can come by and check you out.
I am Sarah Styles LLC everywhere: Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I'm not on TikTok very much because who has time? But Facebook, eBay, Poshmark, Etsy. My website is Sarah Styles LLC. Everywhere you possibly could look. I think I'm everywhere. I'm not active everywhere all the time, but I am. I have something everywhere.
Yeah. So if you want to go by and check out Sarah Styles' channel, her Instagram and YouTube links are down below. I'm a subscriber of Sarah's channel. Sometimes you'll catch me in there leaving comments on her channel. I was actually in your live about a week ago and you had Chris from Daily Refinement on. You guys might have told me. Actually, I got tagged on Instagram because I have opinions and sometimes I put my big mouth in. Yeah, I was like, I commented in the live stream and she like took a screenshot and put me on Instagram. So it was Sarah Styles, Chris from Daily Refinement, and you see Jeff from eBay Addicts in the bottom of the screen, like throwing my 2 cents in there when no one asked my opinion.
You made a comment about feedback or something, right? Wasn't it?
And it's like no one asked for my opinion, but I like kind of drop it in there anyways. So,
I love it. That's why I like doing the lives, because then you get to interact with different people.
Right.
That was great because he came on and did a store review.
Store
Did you like that? I'm considering having someone do it. Did you?
Yeah, it was cool, and I was just like throwing my own little 2 cents in the review as well. So if you guys
Well,
get a
everyone
chance
has
to
a
go
different
by,
opinion. Yeah.
yeah, you should invite me on your show sometime, and we'll go there and we'll pick on everybody's stores. We'll just go through one at a time, and it's like oh your lighting's bad, your photos are bad, you just do that for like 30 minutes. It'd be fun.
Yeah.
Anyways, so if you guys get a chance, go check out Sarah Styles. Her links are down below. Give me your final thoughts, and we'll let you go. We greatly appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us today. We had fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I always love chatting with other people, especially other adults who do this. I'm stuck with kids all day, and my husband, bless his heart, will talk to me about this. But I think he caps out. So I am always game to come on if it's in that chunk of time that I have and chat with you or anyone else. You know, if you guys have YouTube channels. Right before this, I shot a video with Reseller in the Australia, I think she was. So I love talking with other people, and that's it. Just you guys can do it. Take it little by little. And if you have questions, I am responsive on Instagram. So if you do have questions or check out some of my videos. And thanks for having me on.
All right, awesome. Let me say hey to a few people in the chat before we let you go. Keith was here. He says, great show. Thanks for the info. We had the Frugal Peanut Reseller is in the chat. The Flippin' Sports Guy. I wanted to say hey to Mr. G. He says hello from the UK. Small Town Picker was here in the chat hanging out with us. Antiques from Karen. Kelly Reseller Louise is here in the chat. Aces was here hanging out with us. And I wanted to say hey to Katie Reeds. And anybody else in the chat, if I missed you, I apologize. You guys have a great day. I will catch you tomorrow afternoon. I have the ATL Flipper will be on 4 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you then. You guys have a great day. I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.